Welcome to the Nate KG podcast. I'm your host, Nate KG, and this is a show about jump rope where I connect with and share the stories of all types of jump ropers, including beginners, elite competitors, enthusiasts, and everyone else in this community. This episode is a little different than usual. Billy Jones invited me onto his podcast, Rock Bottom, to be interviewed about jump rope and a wide variety of other topics, and was kind enough to let me share his recording on this show. While we do discuss working out and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, this episode is largely focused on skill acquisition throughout life and topics other than fitness. If you want to watch the original podcast video, check out Billy's YouTube page, Tangy Delore. That's Tangy space DE space LORE. All of the show notes can be found over at natekg.com. And now, please enjoy this interview of me, hosted by Billy Jones.
I go around a lot and I travel a lot. And I just see so many different things and I just see all these different possibilities. And it's kind of like weird that you have to live one life. And I know I think too much about that kind of stuff, but I always want to take different paths. And then I see someone else doing things. Like I've even worked on Wall Street, believe it or not. And I really liked Wall Street, but I also like doing construction work. I also like talking on the internet. I also like doing all these different routes and different possibilities and trying to fit that all into one lifetime, I guess you can say, is kind of
Well, no, I see what you're saying. I think that again, this is all personal opinion, but I follow a lot of different folks who speak about this kind of subject. I think one of the more notable ones would be like Tim Ferriss. Are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
I'm not actually.
You might really dig his work. His more notable thing is the 4-hour work week. And he has like a whole line of like the 4-hour chef, 4-hour body. Like he's the 4-hour guy. And he has a really substantial podcast where he talks about this kind of stuff. And like listening to the people he brings on the podcast and listening to these people who are in their, 40s, 50s, 60s, who are widely successful by almost any definition of that term, they all come back to this idea of like, I mean, if you think about it, like if you're gonna make it to 50 years old, which there's a high likelihood that is the case, you're going to live your life that you've already lived again. So you have, I mean, in my opinion, from what I've been listening to, you have the time to do all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny because a lot of people tell me that, and like even my friends feel like you're 24, so you're not. I'm 23, and so we're not far apart. But don't you feel like an old man?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we're not that old, but it feels like we're that old, and there's like a rush to get stuff done.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to even just talk about girls, but at the same time, like I feel like I meet one girl and she's like way older than me, and then I meet another girl and they're the same age. Like we're all 23. They're all, they like going out to bars and they like going and doing a lot of things that I just feel like I'm growing out of already, So I've been, but then sometimes I wonder if it's just because I travel a lot, or sometimes if I realize it's because I'm like, I want a house, I want to make sure, I want to get something down and I want to actually create something. I want to be a business owner. I want to, I want to do good in my life. So sometimes I wonder if it's the fact that I'm overgrown or if I'm just, but after talking to people like you and you're saying, hey, you're exactly where you're at, you're doing the right thing, it almost makes me feel more comfortable. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way as I do, like for trying to figure things out, trying to, how it took me like 20 minutes just to hook up my equipment. And going through all that is a huge step. Starting a podcast, asking people to come on the thing, like a lot of the steps people don't know and people aren't willing to take. But for advice for that is anyone who's listening to the podcast is just ask. Like I listened and I read a book, and one of the biggest things was just ask, go out, just talk to people, figure out what you want to do. Like you said, we have plenty of time to do stuff, and there's people that are 50 who still don't understand what they're trying to do, but just ask, go figure out, ask a lot of questions.
I mean, I think that on the point of like asking, like you're saying, a lot of what this time is meant for is to learn the skills. So rather than expecting, I mean, it's kind of top of mind for me because a lot of my skills that I've been practicing are kind of coming together at this point, especially while we're on quarantine. It's been very fruitful for me in terms of business, but
I I was going to go over some of that stuff because are you a coach? I wanted to actually ask more about you. I've been watching your page, and I do jump roping. I actually go back and forth between a lot of exercises, but the one thing I liked about your page is like you almost keep me excited about jump roping. You do
I'm
all
glad
these
to hear
different
that.
things. Yeah. I don't.
What is it exactly that is exciting?
So I'm not doing all the tricks that you do. I had some of the tricks written down, and I don't have them off my top of my head. I can go wind up looking on my phone, but you're always doing something new. Like that just shows me how many possibilities there are for just one thing. And like I said, I like doing a whole bunch of things, but you just dive in, and I'm like, man, I could be doing like backflips and jump roping, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes down to like, again, the fruitfulness of this time. Like right now, doing online programs and having an online business is a very hot topic, and it's a very front of mind possibility. So a lot of what I put out serves. I mean, I'm really glad to hear that. In terms of the variety of stuff, the variety is also on purpose to hit 2 points. One is just to show people a lot of what's possible, right? And to give these options that are, I do a lot right now. I'm doing a lot of challenges. The challenges are just to show things that are different and that are hard to work towards, but the other part of it serves to show like, I'm building jump rope courses. And so this is kind of me both.
How do you structure stuff like that? Like, how do you begin on even structuring things?
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is kind of about, is testing the waters. Putting out these challenges gives me feedback to see what works the best. But in terms of, putting it together, it comes down to marketing, which is its own skill. And you start with thinking about, who am I actually making this for, and what do they want? And then from there, once you answer that question, a lot of the structure really fills itself in. So as I've asked people about different things, I basically have 3 people who follow me on Instagram. I have somebody who's relatively new to jump rope, is still learning, what to do with the rope and how to use it as a fitness tool, basically, which sounds like you probably fit that category pretty well. You're experimenting with skills, you're working out, you're having fun. The second type of person that follows me would be someone who's a little bit more deep into the jump rope skills, who is starting to get a nice dictionary and knows what's up with all different types of skills, and has kind of made jump rope more or less a large part of their fitness, kind of like the mainstay of it. And then the third person who follows me is like competitive jump ropers. So people who
really?
They have and that's my personal history is, growing up in the sport and competing with jump rope. So the more I dig into that, and the more I talk to people and hear about like, well, what would you want out of a course? What would you want to learn? And the more I watch and listen, and I'm in the conversations, I'm in the comments talking, then you start to learn what people want. And I've done a personal training certification in personal training, so I've done that process, so I have an idea of how to structure things. So once I get those answers, it's pretty easy to just put it together into a package.
I actually have a question, and this goes like a little bit deeper. The reason I started a podcast, and one of the biggest inspirations, was I feel like I lost my voice there for a little bit. I went to college. I was a really, really good speaker. I wound up doing all the public speaking. I always did really good. I even did speaking for a couple of organizations. They had me talk for them, and I just got out of it. I started moving around. I started not realizing like really what I wanted to do, and I feel like I really, really lost my voice there. I want to like what made you, or what makes you passionate about exercising and jump roping, and even starting your business? Because that's not a lot of people, like you mentioned marketing there. Marketing is a huge like part of it, and you have to be passionate about it to be able to market it.
So to answer that, I kind of need to provide a little bit of context and back up a little bit. So when you say you lost your voice, I would reframe that as, rather than losing, you gained a skill that you had on the back burner, and you've come back to it. And I'll explain how that fits into why I think that, and how that fits into me. So I've been jump roping since I was like somewhere around 11, 12 years old. That's when I started in the competitive world. So I've learned the craft for 14 plus years. So that is one, tier of skills that I've learned. Once I went into college, I started as a communication major, and communication, for all intents and purposes, lends itself towards marketing. That's what people in the major were doing. I honestly, when I started, I saw that people were doing marketing, and I thought to myself, well, that sucks. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to try it anyway to confirm my thoughts. As it turns out, I actually really like marketing and it worked out really
Yeah.
well. And so but the point was just to go jump into this new skill. So I have jump rope. Now I'm testing out marketing, try it, really give it a shot and see how it goes. And I was expecting to not like it and to move on. Turns out it worked out really well.
Oh, that's
Now
awesome.
that's like the first half of college. Second half of college,
Did
pursued a
you
personal.
did you finish college?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I
awesome.
finished. Yeah.
Do you think
So
that had a big part of why you're doing, like, I consider you successful. You're definitely
you.
growing your page. I feel like you're really, really professional.
Thanks.
And
Appreciate
I
that.
feel like that's a big part of like why your business grows is
Mhm.
I like part of your image. I know I'm gonna like diss myself a little bit, but like I feel like I'm a slob. I like looking like a slob. I like kind of coming off like I'm 23. I don't know what I'm doing, and I do a lot of marketing. I do a lot of hard work, and I do a lot of work in the background and stuff like that. But I also like just going for me for all
Well,
of
the
it.
thing is,
What's
like
going
you,
and
again, like we were talking briefly before at the beginning, you don't have to. This is my opinion. I've seen a lot of people adopt this mindset and be successful, or I've learned from people who have done this. You don't have to necessarily have the goal in front of you right now.
Mhm,
Everything I'm doing right now, there's zero chance I would have ever expected it at the beginning of college, at the end of college, even a year after college, even
mhm,
8 months ago, I would not have expected this at all.
yeah.
But what is important is that you identify a skill and you sink into it and you go for it. And that's when you ask, like, do I feel like college was valuable? Yes, because dude, I was the same thing. I had no clue what I wanted to. I didn't even know what it meant to, like, the idea of getting a career. Like, it's nice when you say, oh, you need to get a career, and that's cool. But like,
Yeah.
it doesn't connect. It didn't connect for me. I didn't have an idea. And so, but instead
Mhm,
of thinking I need to figure out what this goal is, I need to figure out what job I want to get, and like thinking so far ahead, I knew it was most likely going to change. So instead of reaching super far and trying to get that thing, I thought, okay, what do I have right now? Well, I have a communication degree, I have a personal training certification minor, and then at like the last year of college, I found a technology management certification, which technically is a minor, but for bureaucratic reasons, I have to call it a certification. And
mhm,
all three of these things were interesting to me. Like, I just liked it. So I thought, okay, rather than figuring out how I can flip this into money or a career or whatever, I looked at generally where are these people going? Like,
mhm,
generally speaking, what are they doing? Sounds all right. I don't know if I'll do that, but that's okay. I like the subject matter. So I said, okay, what I have right now are these three things I'm interested in. I'm going to dive into them. I'm going to apply myself and learn them and gain that skill, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, if I learned the things in each of those disciplines, I would then have that skill no matter what. You cannot,
mhm.
once you've got, I mean, you can argue that like you might fall behind, like in marketing, you might not know
Could
the
I
advanced
actually
tactics, but
could I ask you what you meant by things there? You said if you dedicate yourself in things, like, do you mean exercising and jump roping and marketing? Okay.
so communication, personal training, and technology management. Technology management was
Mhm.
basically business. So we'll call it business for the purpose of our conversation.
That's
So I've got marketing, fitness training, and business,
okay.
right? There's a lot in each of those. There's a lot of different things to pursue in terms of, like, in marketing, for example, that's an easy one to pick on. You've got inbound marketing, outbound marketing. You've got content strategy. You've got email campaigns and email marketing. There's all these different silos within that big topic, and there's a
Hmm.
lot to do that you can do. And rather than feeling crushed by all these things and I don't know what to do, I just thought, okay, let's just get started. Let's find
Hmm.
one thing. Let's start learning, and let's learn
Hmm.
and let's learn and let's learn and let's learn.
Hmm.
And you know, to me, you can take the idea of marketing, you can take the idea of these um, career skills, and the idea of training and practicing and learning, you can apply that to soft skills as well.
Hmm.
So while I was doing all this in college, in the middle, I ended up breaking up with a long-term girlfriend, which was it was a bit of a bummer, but
Hmm.
for a good period of time, I just kind of sat there and felt like shit, as I think most people do. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, what now? Like, am I just gonna just keep thinking about this? And I mean, I did. I sat on the
Hmm.
couch for a while, and I was just like,
Like we all
but
do.
yeah, exactly. But then I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, how do I get better? And to be fair, there's a little bit of ego in that because I was like, I want to get better and prove you wrong,
Yeah.
which is not the greatest motivation, but it got me started, right?
I feel like we
And
all have that a little bit though, and I'm not, one of the reasons I say I got silent and everything was I dealt with a long term relationship too, and I
Mhm.
feel like that whole thing. First of all, we're growing as people, and
Yeah.
then when you wind up dealing with that breakup, and you wind up dealing with the different pressures that it puts on you after you, because when you're in a relationship, you're almost kind of like in a zone that you think, oh,
Hmm.
everything is perfect. And then as soon as you're going out, like you break up and you're no longer in that relationship, you're like, hey, wait, that wall is definitely falling. You know what I mean?
And
I should have worked on that earlier.
it
So, and it
changes the
changes
way
your
you see
perspective.
yourself as well.
Hmm.
And so the point of that kind of anecdote is that I got to this point where I wanted to improve myself, and you can use self-help books as
Hmm.
like the skill we're talking about, like
Yeah.
improving yourself. That is its own skill as well.
Do you
And
read
so
self help books?
yeah, I mean, I
I do too.
that
I do too.
term, what's that?
I do too. I usually, well, you were going to say that term for
The
the
term,
books.
like, to me, self-help is a little bit not, it doesn't really encapsulate all that's in that category. But
Hmm.
for the purpose of what we're talking about, that is the case. And Tim Ferriss technically falls under self-help, and he's one of the people that I follow the most. But
Oh,
when you
yeah.
actually read his content, it's much more human, and there's much more principles of living, rather than like, oh, help yourself. Because to me, there's two versions of self-help. There's the seven things to do in the morning to make sure that you crush it at your corporate job. And then there's the, hey, we're all people. Here's an example of something that I've learned. Here's how you can apply it to your life. And that's more what I mean by that. But the point is, the idea of self-help and growing is, in my mind, the same way. It's the same thing as growing a marketing skill. It's the same thing as showing up to the gym and doing the reps every single day.
Mm. I
So
yeah, I totally agree. With your job, so you do coaching, and I'm not
mhm,
sure any of your programs or anything that you have. But how do you manage? Like the first thing is like, I want to go to the bar. I want to go outside and just do other things than work out all the time. How do you keep yourself determined, and how do you keep yourself set to that goal of
mhm.
uh of exercising in general? Like, not trying
Well,
to say like we all I in the midst of doing this and trying to get Skype to work and trying to get my recording equipment out, I winded up going, and then I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little bit stressed, and then I grabbed the Coke, and then I'm like, I don't want that. You know what I mean?
hmm
And I
hmm
haven't drank soda in a while, but this
hmm
quarantine, first of all, got me sitting
yeah.
down doing nothing. That's a
hmm
huge back set. And because I've been sitting doing nothing, I guess I haven't been keeping to my uh, which
Schedule,
schedule.
discipline.
Yeah,
Hmm.
discipline. That's the word I was looking for. I haven't been keeping to my discipline as much. And, I've been letting myself drink a little bit more soda, especially because I probably live in a different area than you. You have a yard.
Hmm.
I have apartment, but there's three people near me, and jump
Yep.
roping. It's not like I'm on the second floor. It's not like I'm
Right.
going to jump rope in my house, and then my yard is shared.
But you can if you don't care about your neighbors.
I can. That's a good point. Because even when I lived over in the city, like that was a big thing, and I feel like the pressures of people looking at you and kind of like I went outside and there was an older couple next to me, and I would be jump roping, and they literally would try to pull into my driveway and then over just because they didn't like the fact that I was jump roping,
Yeah,
and it
it's
was the
annoying.
city.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
of
it's
course
annoying.
there's
There,
parks and
that's
there's
real.
people that does yoga, and I usually went out and I also did yoga, and I also jump rope, and I feel like it did a big part of me not caring about what people think. But there are those situations that you're in a house, and I know a lot of my roommates at the time wouldn't even want to go out because they're like, "Yo, no, we just don't want people looking at us like that."
Hmm.
How
Well,
would
I
you
think,
overcome that?
yeah. Well, so I think in terms of maintaining discipline and continuing. So we're talking about like how to maintain discipline and how to maintain growing growing for all intents and purposes a business, and keeping the balance with career and pleasure. Um, in
I
terms of
asked you a lot
discipline,
there. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's all
Sorry.
good.
I went over a lot there.
No, you're good. So when it comes to maintaining discipline, it's important to know that the context of where we are right now. The thing with discipline is, like, I think a lot of people, including myself,
Mhm.
expect for it to be consistent every single day. You think of people like Jocko Willink, retired Navy SEAL, gets up before 4 a.m. every day, crushes his workout, is posting it on Twitter, here goes Jocko, but
Mhm.
not, it's different. And it's not that he feels obliged to it, it's that he enjoys it, and that's part
Yeah.
of his programming that he enjoys. But so with discipline, keep in mind the context of where we're at. So, like, especially right now with the quarantine, it's really weird, and it's flipping us all upside down, and it's removing a lot of the things that usually keep us excited. For me personally, being around my friends, not in necessarily a bar setting, but like having a intimate one-on-one conversation about like our aspirations and the things that we're working on, and getting excited about things, that
Mhm.
fires me up and that keeps me going. And now that's changed. Now it's happening over
Mhm.
phone versus in person. Luckily, it's relatively easy to do that, but
Mhm.
it adjusts. And
Do
working
you do you
out.
do coaching over Skype?
So in terms of the business and the coaching stuff, that's all very brand new. And we
Okay.
can get into
Okay.
that in a little bit, and I can explain what the goal is there. But um, we could get that in a second. But with the discipline of doing working out, like, you have to now, the goals that we had before, the expectations that we had before, we cannot hold ourselves to that standard at the moment. We have to reshape what we're going after with the changing landscape. So,
Mhm.
like, personally, my favorite thing to do when I work out is to separate all my workouts. I don't like to go hit squats, then jump rope, then do this, then do that. I
Mhm.
like to do heavy lifting because that is fun for me. And that's usually not going to be paired with jump rope, because once I've done that, my body is shot and I don't have the same level of explosiveness. I
Yeah.
also like to do very intense speed training, which is equivalent to like a runner doing sprints and that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Again, these require different energy systems, so I separate them. But now, I mean, I'm very happy that I have a backyard. I'm very fortunate to have the equipment that I
Mhm.
do, but it's not what I had before, and it's been very tough. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I post every day, but those posts they're not the same as a workout for me. Those
Yeah.
posts are relatively quick and easy to get done.
If you
So,
were to move from jump roping, because you do post every day, like jump
mhm,
roping every day and keeping your challenge videos, like that was a very good approach to how you managed your business and how you marketed. Because you can just do that every day. And every single day I wind up seeing you. And you came to mind when I came to do the podcast as
mhm.
well, because I'm like, this, you stay consistent. You're very, very dedicated and very, very passionate about
Yeah, I
what you're
mean, the
doing and
thing
your business.
that so it's important to know too that
You
the
want to do
business
well.
is starting. So what I'm doing now is all experimental, and it's
Mhm.
all it comes from it comes from years of hearing what people want. I'm
Yeah.
not doing things. It's there's two forms of marketing in my opinion. There are hitting the tactics to make a sale, and there
Mhm.
is finding people that want something that you can genuinely provide, and listening and being a part of the group and understanding what they want and helping them achieve what they're going to. And the marketing just serves as a catalyst to get from point A to point B smoothly and effectively. So
Mhm.
the stuff that I put out is really just what people already want and what I've seen they enjoy. Um, so in terms of maintaining the discipline, there's 2 points to that. Number one, I have people that follow me. They're literally my friends. Like, these are actually
Mhm.
people that I've met over the years that want to hear this from me, and it's fun to do that. But the other thing too is, like, there are tactical ways to approach. I mean, this is content creation, so there's tactical ways to approach content creation
Mhm.
to get it done effectively. I've previously, I mean, I've done professional photography and videography work as well.
I was going
So
to ask you. I seen your actual page, and
yeah.
the very first thing I saw in your profile is you have this gigantic camera, and then you're taking an
Yes.
awesome photo. So that
Yes.
means you have two ginormous cameras.
Yes, I have a couple of cameras that I'm
Yeah,
very, very proud
yeah.
of. Proud that I've been able to purchase them and use them. But
Mhm.
so a lot. I mean, again, like, this is where we started the podcast talking about how to attack skills and grow as a 20-something-year-old, I've never approached the skills that I've learned as, dude, when I was jump roping, one of the first thoughts I had a couple years in was like, man, if I could do this for a living, I'd be set. And then at that time, I was like, there's no way to make a living off of this because no one else was doing it. And so I just wrote it off in terms of a career, but I kept going and I kept learning the craft. And I've applied that to everything. I've applied it to marketing. I've applied it to business, which is one of the newer skills that I'm learning. I've applied it to content creation in the form of photo, video, motion graphics, audio editing. Like once you really narrow down, like, what is the skill that I'm trying to learn, and you attack it, you like what you were describing with, well, let me finish the thing I was saying before about discipline. Okay. I batch create my content. So like I'll spend a Sunday, I'll write up all the challenges I want to do, and then I'll go outside for like a half an hour, record everything, come inside, and then I'm done for a week. So I actually don't go out every day, which in terms of when you say like how you say discipline to work out every day, I don't. I legitimately have not been working out. I've done maybe 7 or 8 workouts in the past 2 months. Like it's been
I can tell
rough.
You're good at your craft because I can't even tell. Like I can't even tell that you weren't out there every single day.
Yeah, so. I mean, and the thing is, like, I have no intention of pulling an illusion on anyone. The only reason, like, I would just be in the same shirt, the same outfit, and record everything. For me, the only reason I change things up and there's an illusion of looking different is because it's easier to go back and find those posts because people do that. That's the only reason I do it. And I will be I have been thinking about, and we'll probably pull the trigger on doing different ways of doing that, because I don't like switching my shirt 7 times in a half an hour doing these, but it's what works. But in terms of treating things as their own skills and learning, like you talked about at the beginning of the podcast, you spent this time learning. You were getting the microphone set up, you were getting ready on how to record, you were doing all these steps.
Yeah. You know how you were saying about changing your shirt? I actually have a really, really good thing. Sometimes I put my microphone, do you remember in my very first video that I've done? I put my microphone here because it screams that I'm doing a podcast. I could stay and I could have not had that, but then it's more like a vlog and different things, and people get the wrong illusion, like people get the wrong feel for what I'm actually trying to do. Yeah, illusion maybe, but I straight out tell people, like, you're not afraid to tell people, hey, I change my shirt every single day. And the thing is, sometimes your workout is different than your video. Like you go,
it always is actually.
So those are your challenge videos, but your workout, like you go and you're doing that hard. And if you have a camera on you 24/7, like it kind of affects your workout. Like you need your private time to do your exercise.
Well, the way I see it is that, and let's double back to the idea of a learning curve after I say this, but to me, anything video related is very much the same as writing an essay.
Yeah.
You're not going to include a lot of things in your essay because you're trying to get across a certain point. That's more noticeable in something like the vlogs that I've been working on. It's less about saying, here's the list of everything I did today, and more about, I have a point that I'm trying to make. Let me describe the things that are relevant, but I'm going to omit a lot of things that are happening because it's just not important, which is the case with the challenges. I don't need to show my workout. I mean, sometimes I will post like, hey, here's the skills I was working on, but you just omit a lot of it, every now and then, like I have just pressed record and then I've posted like a 10-minute video to IGTV of like, here's literally what everything I did. And that's fun every now and again, but it's usually not necessary. But in terms of the idea of a learning
curve,
do
you think people actually watch all that stuff like for a live? Do you think people actually sit there and watch your entire life? Like I've even seen people that have like 100,000 K, and I'm not going to call out anyone's name, but I do actually know references, and they'll have 4 people watching their live. And I know that they're successful, and I know that they're big people because these are people that have even been on TV, and they'll have 4 people. Some of them, even the music that I listen to, I'll wind up seeing them going posting, and they'll have 100 people watching their live stream.
That's kind of complicated topic, just because like, it comes down to the person, what they're providing to the, like, so for example, I have a friend, her name is Shari. She's a professional heptathlete, and she's looking at trying to get into the Olympics, which she'll make it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, they canceled it this year, so that was a bit of an issue. But the point is,
Yeah.
she's got 230 something thousand followers. I might have that wrong. She might have more. But when
Mhm.
she goes live, she's got, a good chunk of people on there. I think between 500 and 1,000. And
Mhm.
lives are a different thing because of just the nature of what that content is different.
Yeah.
But it comes down to, who that person is and what you're saying to the right person. And that's a weird phrase, but the point is, when she speaks, she has a couple of people that she knows are listening, that she is creating that content for. Like there are people she knows, she talks to, and the more you actually get to know the person you're speaking to, the more you, like me with my jump rope people, they're actually my friends, and so they'll text me and we'll
Mhm.
talk about, like, hey, this is what I was working on, or they'll DM me and like, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm thinking. And so the more you understand what that person is doing, the more you can turn around and say, hey, here's this piece, here's what I'm talking about that
Yeah.
relates directly to you. So
Yeah.
in terms of the person who has 100,000 who only has 4 people listening, there's a lot that could influence that. So it's hard to be sure, but like they might just not be matching exactly, and
Yeah.
different platforms are different context. So
Mhm.
but in terms of earlier we were talking about with the learning how to do a podcast, every skill there's a learning curve to it.
Yeah.
And so
The
that
first
the
first step
first
of being
little
good at something is being bad at something.
that's, and you
Mhm.
honestly, there's always, as good as you get, there's always something you don't know. And so with any kind of skill, in terms of the idea of being 20 something trying to figure things out, it's not
Mhm.
about how can I nail it? How can I be successful right now? It's about, okay, every time I do a skill, there's a learning curve. If I'm
Oh
trying to learn
yeah.
how to do a podcast, that initial, it's like a hockey stick going up because there's so much you
Yeah.
gotta learn, and then it levels off a little bit, and then there's just always a next level you're reaching. So you've learned
Mhm.
how to set it up,
There's always something new you could learn.
yeah, you
Always
can
something.
set up, you learn how to set up the microphone, you learn how to record, you learn how to get your questions ready, talk to the
Mhm.
person, reach out. Cool. There's the first 5 things. Awesome. You've done that a couple times. It's going smoothly. Now what's next? Well, how
Yeah.
do I play with different narrative formats? How do I, make this part a little bit cleaner? How do I sharpen this? How do I
Mhm.
repurpose the content for Instagram? Okay,
Yeah.
that's the next level. And so I personally think that the point of 20s and learning is to find as many things and to sink your teeth into them and
Yeah.
get to a point where, a lot of things, especially right now, like
Yeah.
you it helps to have a job and it helps to be somewhere to learn, but you can learn so much
Yeah.
first and really get an idea of what's going on but you have to really apply yourself. You have to really give it a go, and it's not supposed to be easy. Your goal, or anyone's goal if they're learning, in my opinion, is to
Yeah.
keep searching out the difficulty and find the problem points and keep finding them and pulling them in and get into that
Oh, I
frustration
completely
so you
agree.
can figure it out.
Yeah. You
So
I don't know if you know that before I did this podcast, I actually had a channel and I was growing it for a
mhm,
while. So when I was 19, 17, I actually started a channel when Tumblr was big. And I
oh
had a lot
nice.
of followers on there and I had a lot of followers on YouTube. And when I went and my format for this podcast was way different. And all these camera tricks and all these like I also focused a lot on filmmaking. I wanted to become a
Mhm,
director really, really
mhm,
bad. And I was watching Rekka Rekka a while ago, and I don't know if you know who Rekka Rekka is.
mhm.
They're a YouTuber. They're a big, big channel, and they're way bigger. But I also grew up watching Smosh. Do you know who Smosh is?
Yeah, I'm aware of who Smosh is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I grew up watching Smosh, and I was really, really determined. I had a whole group, and we were one of the reasons I got into, and I really, really like your channel is because we were doing parkour and we were doing all these different
I love
like
it.
we were doing all these different stunts, and a lot of my friends still do it. Like I have friends that are comedians and I
Mhm,
talk to all of them and we're still a group. But with this whole page and with this podcast that I am doing, I want it to be more real. Like I want to
mhm,
show, I want to figure out how to wind up showing flaws and wind up showing like actual conversation and
mhm,
keeping it interesting and keeping content that people don't usually do. I kind of want to bring it to the next level because I see a lot of people nowadays doing on YouTube and a lot of marketing in general. They're posting all this content, and I'm trying to be more real with my content. I'm
mhm,
trying to be more raw with it.
mhm.
And I almost like the fact that I'm like, sometimes I even stumble over my words, or sometimes I even come off with a certain aesthetic I'll use, because I'm trying to pull off that aesthetic. And it's an aesthetic that I have never tried before. It's an aesthetic that I didn't really plan for. And I'm trying to talk about a lot deeper subjects as well, because a lot of the reasons that I like exercising, and I know actually I don't want to put myself in this, but also because a lot of my friends, I keep on growing up, and I will put myself in this, I guess. A lot of my friends are going the wrong way with life, and I feel like exercising is a big way of staying on top of, hey, I'm not going to wind up doing the wrong stuff, if you know what I mean. Getting drugs, getting into bad business, getting into messing up their life. And I see a lot of my friends who stay active, go outside, go and like are working and staying disciplined. And exercise is a huge, huge thing about staying disciplined. You're a well-spoken person as well, and you're very, very well-spoken. But there is a challenge to winding up talking about these harder things, and I feel like that's why. I try to capture my words right now only because I am talking about harder things. So, but I like to stay disciplined so that I wind up not staying out of like getting into that kind of stuff. And I feel like a lot of people use exercise, especially with, think of joining the army. A lot of people wind up staying and joining the army to wind up staying away from the bad, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we all have the certain things that we engage in to keep us on track, and for some people, in a more intense situation, they need a stronger coping mechanism. And one of my friends, Fausto, actually, he lives in LA. He has, if we're gonna, if you want to go down the route of talking about, serious life stuff, he's had a very, very rough past. He's been, you name it, he's done it. He's had a lot of drug abuse, a lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of severe depression. And he the thing that I've learned from him and from a lot of other folks hearing about these kinds of stories is, the folks that are in my network usually take jump rope and they and exercise, and they use that as their straightening tool, right?
Yeah.
But it really, I think, comes down to finding.
Have you ever dealt with any of people that came to you as well, and are like, hey, I'm trying to get back on track, or any situations like that?
No, because I mean, I'm not licensed in any kind of mental health practitioner. You know what I mean? I have my things that I think and I see and I assume and I find to be true anecdotally, but nothing. I'm not certified in any regard for that kind of stuff.
Oh,
but
I
do believe.
Themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I do believe that a lot of people, the more I'm able to put out the things that I believe in, and I speak about it and I make it accessible, it opens up the opportunity for more people to find that and then apply it to themselves. But yeah, I think it really just comes down to finding what works for you or works for that specific person, about how they pull themselves out of that. But I think I've also noticed a trend with a lot of different folks who, and I've talked to some of my older friends about this, people who are mid 30s, 40s, and I've asked them, and I've gotten a lot of feedback of like, you see all these people out of high school, beginning of college, right? 19 to 22, and they're a certain way. Some people seem like they're going to be really successful. Some people seem like they're going to screw up their entire life. And the truth is, there's never, from the feedback that I've gathered, there's never, and what I'm watching with my network and my friends as we grow up, there's never necessarily it's not an accurate predictor. There are so many people who, to your example, like might find themselves going down a rough path. They're for a myriad of reasons, getting into drugs, alcohol abuse, partying, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they might come out of that in a much different place. It might be something that they just need to get out of their system, and they cut it off and they get serious about work. Like it's really common to see people who are, screwing up, and then by 30, 35, they're just crushing it because they're ready to rock and roll.
No,
so
I agree with that.
And then there's people who seem like they're doing really well.
And I know I'm comparing exercising to discipline, but I do think it's a big thing with discipline. I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of my friends from high school or that I grew up with or even adults, because I've traveled a lot, the people that stay more disciplined and are, try to take a little bit more control, like you can't control everything, life winds up happening, are winding up being able to better spoken characters, they're handling their life a little bit more, what's called, I'm trying to find the words,
They're
I
just
don't want
being
to say
adults.
yeah, they're being more adults. I don't want to say like handling their life better, and people think, oh,
Mhm.
you have to exercise to handle your life better, and
They're managing it.
They're managing. But I definitely think that discipline is a huge part in that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And it's difficult to learn too, because the issue with discipline is that you have to have a strong sense of delayed gratification and be okay with that. And that's very difficult for a lot of people, including myself even now. It gets hard to sit down and be like, okay, I'm about to go through some stuff that really sucks, and that's okay because I'm going to come out of it better.
Or even breakups and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things is when I broke up with my girlfriend, and when I got really back in exercise, I was 160 pounds, and when I got out of that relationship, I was 250.
That's
so
a big difference.
Now I'm 180 again, but that took me a lot of determination, a lot of going to the gym at late hours, running, just to wind up getting that all out. My two biggest exercises and how I winded up losing weight the best was running and jump roping, and then the row machine.
Nice.
So my old gym that I went to, and I'm not even going to mention questions about, I'm not even going to mention names, I should say, but I switched my gyms to one of these more, I went to a private gym before, and now I'm going to one of the bigger gyms, one of their one of the chain gyms, and I tried to jump rope in there, and they actually kicked me out.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. That happens a lot.
They kicked me out. I was gonna say, and I'm paying all this money to go to this gym, and I actually even paid for the bigger membership.
Yep.
Yeah, they have a spa and this and that, but I don't have the freedom to go out and jump rope. And those are the biggest things that I winded up going to apart to. And ever since I feel like I joined this gym, they got me out of my discipline, and now I'm going to one of these chain gyms, and I want to go back to my private gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's another reason I wanted up reaching out to you, is because for learning how to wind up going and working out yourself, it's the biggest part of it, because these chain gyms almost restrict you in the exercising that you can do. Even the machines at the gyms, I know that sometimes that's people's only options, but going and trying to go and talking and asking questions online, and going and asking you, how many questions do you wind up getting online?
A good amount. I usually wake up, and I mean, it's not crazy by any means, but like I usually have around 20 DMs in the morning to answer. So, and they're roughly the same kinds of questions, but I think it's less about to your point, I think it's less about finding the right machines. I think it's more about trying a lot of forms of exercise. One of the biggest things about discipline and adherence to an exercise program is not get up, get your ass there, do it. It's more about find what you genuinely enjoy. The reason why jump rope really locks people in is because it's something that they really like to do. The skills are exciting. There's always something new to chase. For other people, they like running because to them, the feeling of getting up, lacing up your shoes, heading out the door, and then going for a 4-mile run, it is actually invigorating. So
not everyone has those spaces, especially in the city. I had to rely on jump roping a lot more, because even running I know I had those instances with the people, but I'd rather go to the park and jump rope and be in one spot than all these cars coming at me and everything else. Like running's not always the optimal, option.
Yeah, and it's not optimal. So you have like your actual constraints. Good example is me right now with the backyard that I have. I do not have a squat rack and the full system at my disposal anymore. But the thing is, what's important, back to the skill learning curve, right? You just have to keep trying different things until you found one that you're like, you know what, I kind of like that. Let me try a little more and a little more and a little more. Yeah. And it's okay to stop, but it's not okay to stop too early. Yeah. If you tried 2 things and you're like, these both suck, well, I would imagine so, because it's only 2 things out of like 100 different options. Yeah. If you've done 3 podcasts and then you stop and you say podcasting is not for me, did you really go after it? I mean, I did that back in college. I did a different podcast.
You did a
and
podcast?
yeah, back in college, I did again, literally 3 episodes where I was talking to faculty at the university I was at and asking them effectively the same questions you're asking now. Like, how do you become successful as a 20-something-year-old college student? And I stopped after 3 episodes because I don't know why. I think honestly, I just dropped off. There's so many things going on. I just stopped doing it, but I didn't really give it a good go.
Yeah.
I learned enough, like you're talking about, to record it, and I got up that first skill curve. But after that, I just dropped off. It served me a lot last year when I started this new podcast that I do, and I've maintained that one, and I'm on a lot more episodes now. But there's just so many different layers that it's worth, if you can set that, again, delayed gratification, if you can set that, okay, I'm here to learn a skill. It's going to be hard. And you can identify, like for me, I like numbers and layers and buckets and bins of like, okay, here's this phase with this list of things. Once that's done, awesome, did it, congratulations, move on to the next one. Here's this bucket with these things. Okay, cool, move on to the next one. And then constantly evaluating and giving context,
I kind of want to go off of that thing that you wind up starting the podcast and then you stopped doing it. And I want to kind of give advice. I want to give advice about how you can handle that as well. Anyone that's winding up starting a podcast. So this started off as I'm writing a book. I don't know if you know. I don't want to give out the title of my book, even though I'm getting down because I might scratch a bunch of it. I've already written. I'm already 250 pages in this book, and when I was writing it, I realized I didn't know how it was going to end. I didn't know what the whole meaning of my book was, and I'm going to say my name of my book, considering I'm going to wind up going. It's called Achieving Nothing, and the book was. It's literally. It's about my life, and it's about all these different things that go on, like whether it's me traveling, with divorce, with my parents, and all these hard, raw subjects that I really want to nail, and I want to become better at talking about. And I also want to help people as well. Like that's one of my biggest things is I know a lot of people that deal with these situations and they come, and I'm not a licensed medical professional or anything at all, but I think it also helps being more open about it. I go outside all the time and I see people dealing with the same situations, and everyone's never really talks about it. They're afraid to talk about themselves because they're afraid to be judged about it. And that's huge.
And insecurity, 100, that's real. But it helps to hear that there's somebody else in the world that understands what you're talking about, and you're not alone. That's a big deal. Yeah.
And talking to people definitely winds up making, I feel like, going to be the quality of all of my work better. Talking to you, I take things from it. And even talking to random people, and this is some crazy thing that I ended up randomly talking to someone that was working at Hot Topic, and she told me, she was like, okay, well, if you don't do the podcast and it doesn't work out and stuff like that, you could always just get drunk and like sleep on a bench. And I know that's like
I mean, that's
funny,
true,
but it's true. She was like, just go do it. And she was talking about her dreams, and it was so funny. And I was just listening. She's like, oh no, I'm just gonna go move to New York, and if it winds up not like working out, and she's like, well, yeah, if it doesn't work out, then I'm just gonna get drunk, and I'm just gonna lay down, and I'm just gonna sleep on a bench every single day, and I'm gonna live my life to the fullest. And
I think a lot of what you're getting at too is like Gary Vaynerchuk's thesis of like macro patience, micro speed. Which also goes to like, you can have a very large goal and like keep that in mind, because that's a great driver, and then find the smallest possible tasks that you can do now. Like one of the big things about habit formation that I've read through Tim Ferriss, but I think it's somebody else's work, and I don't have the name offhand, but you know, if you're trying to learn to floss every day, don't set this goal of like every day I have to floss my teeth. Set this goal of, okay, I need to floss one tooth for an entire week. How easy is that? That's way easy. And then you go next week, 2. So you find the smallest thing that you can achieve right now. And the second you're consistent with that, with every parameter you decide on, you then increase a little bit and a little bit. And it comes down to how much you as a person are, like, not you, but like the person can withstand and be consistent.
I definitely agree with that. I run 5 to 10 miles almost every single day, and I don't do it anymore.
That's
since
a lot.
I do run a lot, And every single day, I never tell myself, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to go run 5 miles. I'm going to run 10 miles because I will never go to the gym. I used to do that. It was the worst because I was working for a marathon. I want to do one. And if I don't feel like doing a marathon afterwards, whatever, like I'll go try it. So I was working up for that. And I never went to the gym every time I said, hey, I'm going to run 5 miles. I'm like, go there, run a mile. I go and find someone that's running along with me. And I go and I sit right next to them and then I'll run or I'll go. And then I wound up joining a group. I started talking to people at the gym and I wound up creating a whole community of people that wound up going to the gym, running every single day. So, and
I think it's important too, to make sure that like with these goals, it's very important to finish them out as well. And I know that I am very guilty of starting a lot of projects and then not finishing them, especially when it comes to like video projects. I will start those and not finish them all the time. But it's really important for the ones that mean the most, like, so for example, I mean, like for a marathon, that's a good example. I mean, I don't know the context of it for you specifically, but like for anyone, if your goal is to run a marathon, it's worth putting everything else on the back burner and achieving that one thing if it means something to you. And Derek Sivers, entrepreneur in America, smart guy, has this rule of hell yes or no. So with anything that you want to do, for me personally, I have like 20 different ideas of new things I want to do every day. It just happens. Like I get excited about things. But most of them are not, okay, hell yeah, let's do this. So if it's not that, it's a no. So if you can identify the one thing, like for you, your podcast and your podcast really sounds like it feeds into the book.
It really feeds into the book.
So they're in tandem, but both of those for you are a hell yeah. So it's worth, doing your best and executing and completing that, because then.
But actually, that's why I started
right now. Like there's no even. I always like to think about the worst case scenario or risk mitigation, right? If for whatever reason, I do my own podcast, right? For whatever reason, if I got nothing out of that other than recording those conversations and learning how to edit a podcast, it might seem like nothing, but I've actually done so much and learned a lot,
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because I'm 20 something.
Do you watch
10 years will be fine.
Podcasts that they edited them? Do you watch podcasts that people edit them?
You mean like videos?
Yeah. No, not videos, like full on podcasts. So, like,
what's that?
So I have our podcast, and this is one of my things that I was going over, or one of the things I was thinking is like, if I edit my podcast, will it take out the quality of my podcast? Like, I feel like the realness of me messing up and doing videos was a part of the reason I chose to do podcasts, is because, it's vulnerability. I'm probably a way better speaker than people are going to think of in this video, but just because this is one of my first podcasts, I actually had someone that I don't know on the show as well, and I have to answer all these questions. A lot of it was nerves, and just it's coming out here and doing it. Yeah, and you're definitely a big help on starting the podcast, because you're very, very well spoken, and I could tell you wind up speaking to people all the time, and I could tell that you're a coach, and I can tell that you're very professional as well. I've answered phones, I've done meetings, I've done this, but coming out so vulnerable and trying to ask questions and go over and really start a community and really show people that I'm trying to be vulnerable, I guess, because that's rock bottom. That's one
the thing with vulnerability and authenticity is that you don't have to. I mean, you can edit things, or you can keep in the blemishes if you'd like, and that definitely factors into it. But to me, vulnerability and authenticity come through a thorough discussion and not through ums and ahs. Like to me, in my podcast, I will edit out. Well, first of all, I edit out a lot of ums just out of courtesy for the guest, because a lot of people don't like to hear themselves do that. But to me, what it comes down to is the principle, like marketing. The point is to make your message clear. So for me, if I say 1,000 times and it distracts from what I'm saying, it actually it deteriorates the authenticity and deteriorates the point of what I'm trying to say in the first place. So, it depends on, obviously, like every person has a different perspective on that. But to me, you can maintain vulnerability and authenticity and edit things to make it more clear. The editing does not mean, when people say editing, it comes across as like polished and professional and now
auto-tuned
and unreal. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like when you see, I see this a lot. I've done a lot of digital advertising as well on Facebook and stuff. And you see some of the best performing ads are not the ones that are the most photoshopped or the best designed graphics, but it's the things that people, and this is so frustrating as somebody that creates content, but someone who takes a video on their iPhone and there's a couple of quick cuts and that's it. That ad a lot of times performs way better than something that is very manicured. And yeah, I forget kind of where I was going with this, but like, editing, when I say editing, it doesn't mean sharpening, it means removing obstructions. And I'll adjust my voice and I'll edit people's voices a little bit, not because I want them to sound better, I want to sound cool. It's because I know that certain decibel levels are active that'll be gross when you hear them in a speaker. It makes it more uncomfortable to listen to rather than just smoothing it out.
Yeah. No, I agree. One of the reasons I started this podcast is even, I guess this is my belief, but people might not watch these podcasts at first, but I'm actually doing a couple of things in the background. And this podcast, like I said, I was going towards my book. It's going to be, that's one of my biggest things is I'm trying to achieve this book. This is my next step. This is my second mile, I guess you can say. And it's all funneling down and it's going to be in the book at the end of the day. All my conversations, it's going to make it more genuine, make it more real, really come off to the people. But I'm also going to I want to become successful. I want to wind up building a business like you are. And I want people to be able to go back on my podcast and be like, wow, he stumbled over his words like 50 times. Yeah, I was nervous. And then later on, when I wind up bringing you back onto the podcast, I'm hoping that you'll eventually come all
in. For sure.
I'm well spoken, and we go talk, and then we go talk over all those ums and my, I guess you could say my mistakes, my vulnerabilities, and I can't think of the other word you winded up saying. You said after vulnerabilities and
authenticity.
I really want to go over that kind of stuff and be like, hey.
Well, I mean, the thing
is, I really was a 23-year-old kid that didn't know what he was doing.
For me, to be totally honest with you, things are changing now in the past couple months for different reasons, but like, I've always kind of expected the things that I set out to do will not work. And I just kind of go into it with this mindset of, okay, well, if this doesn't work in terms of, what's that?
I said achieving nothing.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thought because the truth is, if you construct the project a certain way, you can construct it in a way where it's impossible to not get anything out of it. So, for example, like my podcast and this coaching thing that I'm doing, even if for whatever I make zero money and everything is for naught, I've constructed it in a way where I will have learned really like how to legitimately run a podcast, and I will have connected with other humans on real relationships, and I will have learned a lot of modern digital marketing tactics. Those three things, if this doesn't work out, I still have those skills. And the same thing applies for your podcast and your book. Like, you can construct it in a way where you can come out of it with a tangible thing that regardless of, it's important to define what success actually means, but like if for whatever reason a different element comes in and that success is not achieved, you've actually still succeeded in creating a thing and learning a lot. So the goal, you know what I mean? That's kind of how I see things in the context of people that are our age, because we have very little responsibility in terms of assets that need to be managed and taken care of, and we have a lot of time. And I've heard both of those things reflected by many, many folks who are at least double my age. So it takes the pressure off in that sense. It just comes down to like, how can you make sure what you're doing gives you some kind of a result? And it's actually relatively easy once you start asking the right questions, which to be fair, a lot of this thinking does come again from Tim Ferriss because he writes extensively about this stuff. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to check him out. I'm going to leave a link. And you also mentioned a couple of your friend. She was doing she also did jump roping, or
Fausto?
I also want to throw her in there as well. So if you go give me her link, then I can go throw her under here as well, along with your link, along with everything else. We're actually hitting the hour mark now.
He's a cool guy. I'll definitely give you his link for sure.
Yeah. we're hitting the hour mark now, so I'm going to actually wrap up the podcast and say thank you for joining. Again, I hope that you will come on the show again.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I could go over a bunch of more questions. I had actually a whole bunch of things planned, but you took over the show, man, and it was awesome. I really liked that.
I talk
was nervous
a lot,
that
so if you get me on a tangent, I'll go.
Oh, I loved it, man. I really loved it. And it kind of went into a whole different direction of what I was even expecting. And I really loved that as well. Because I had all this stuff planned. And some conversations, like I recorded other ones that I didn't even put on. I did test runs even with my friends. And I had to hold the conversation the entire time. And it was great having someone on here winding up talking and, you have the show, man.
Interviewing is its own skill. And I've definitely learned that. I'm constantly trying to find more and more challenges with interviewing because I look up to a lot of people who are interviewing, and I find people who interview, I really find that skill of interviewing, if you can sharpen it, pays dividends.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you're not the coach to go to, I don't know who is.
I only paid you $20 to say that line at the end.
Thank you again for joining my show, and this is Rock Bottom. You guys have a very good day.
Hey, before you go, I just wanted to say one last thing. One of my main goals for this podcast is to share the stories, of other jumpers and provide a full picture about everything that's possible with the jump rope. The more people that hear this, the better. And it would really help me out if you sent this podcast to somebody you know, whether in real life or digitally on Instagram, Facebook, whatever platform you use. It would mean the world to me. So that's it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, lunch, evening, whatever time it is for you right now. See you later.